How's it going, everyone? And welcome back to another episode of Sip Talk. I'm Pete Sippis, and joining me are four of my favorite U of A Wildcats. Joining us again, the king of Cave Creek himself, Dylan Najat. From Salt Lake City, Utah, Sean McDaniel, Jacob Tallman joining us for the first time since his debut on Politics, and making his Sip Talk debut for the first time, Samuel Erickson. Sam, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Sorry about the disconnect there. Just happy to be here on my debut for Sip Talk, and looking forward to a group therapy session to discuss Wildcat football.
Well, that's why we're all here. We all have our thoughts about the close 70-7 loss. We got 7 points on the board. So let's just go around, and to start this group therapy session, just one word to describe how you felt last night while watching that. I'll start off with Dylan. Dylan, one word to describe last night's 70-7 loss against ASU.
Avoided.
Avoided. All right. Sean, what about you?
Abominable.
Ooh, a few syllables in that word. Jacob, how about you?
Unsurprising.
And Sam, how about you? One word to describe how you felt last night.
Shame.
Shame. There's a nice little wide variety. For me, the first 56 seconds, for me, it would have been pain, because I was just in pure shock that we managed to go down 14-0 in 56 seconds. But after that, just hilarious. Like, it was audibly funny. Just as the Arizona fan in me was definitely ashamed, but the sports fan in me just could not help laugh about how bad they were at football. Like, in any sport, I've never seen a performance that bad in a game that is supposedly supposed to mean so much. Having two winless teams go against each other. And one of our losses came against a ranked USC, and that was only a 4-point game. To lose that bad to a winless ASU team, I agree, shameful, but I could not help but just laugh every time we fumbled the ball, every time we threw a pick. Does anyone have any fun stats for us involving that game?
I was just going to bring up what Pete, Sean, and I were messaging about the other night about the turnovers. I think it's fun to talk about how we scored 7 points and had 7 turnovers in the same game. That's a nice little tidbit.
Yeah, I do want to know. I mean, obviously, there's definitely been times where teams have had as many turnovers as points. Like, you could only have 3 points and have 3 turnovers. But I do want to know if there's been a time where a team has had as many turnovers as points while still scoring a touchdown.
Well, to be fair, back in 1969, it seems that John Reeves of Florida threw 9 interceptions in one game. So I think Grant Gunnell is in the clear for that record.
There's a funny thing before the game started, and you could tell that ESPN just didn't want to be there. The sideline reporter's like, yeah, we've been asking the question all week, who's going to be the quarterback, Gunnell or Plummer? And I'm just like, nobody has been asking that. Like, there's like, oh, who's going to be the quarterback? And I'm like, I don't think we have a quarterback. Like, what's going on here? Like, they had to act all surprised about, oh wow, it's going to be Grant Gunnell, and Coach Sumlin said it all came down to experience. And I'm like, experience? Has he won a game before?
I think the last win dates back to, what is it, October 5th against Colorado last year? Is that correct?
Yes, it's been 435 days. But did Grant Gunnell win that game?
I think that was the game that he first started in. I could be wrong on that, though. Don't quote me.
I think he won. I think the game he won was against UCLA.
Okay, so he has a win. Got it. It's good to know for a team
from the season where he wasn't the starter.
Yes, but good to know that he has a win before our 12-game losing streak.
That's the experience you're looking for in your starting queue.
A fun fact from the game was that the first Chinese-born running back scored a touchdown for ASU.
Jackson He. The first Chinese-born player ever to make a debut, let alone score in a college football game, was Jackson He, and he did it against us. Pretty historical.
I also believe I heard a stat that was the largest either margin of victory or most amount of points scored ever in a Pac-12 conference game.
I think it's largest amount of victory because I've definitely seen some Pac-12 games that were like Big 12 barn burners that were like 50 something to 60 something. But I think that's maybe the largest deficit. I know that's the most points ASU has ever scored against us ever, like
That is correct.
by a mile.
What I did like about it was that the over-under was 56, and ASU took care of that all by themselves. That was fun.
Almost in the first half.
Yeah,
Was it a single digit spread?
it was 11.
It started at 11. It like flexed a couple days down to like 9, and then I think it finished back at 11.
Okay, so we kept it a little close.
I will say that we did put up 67 points to Arizona State's 0 back in 1946 for the 20th game of the Territorial Cup. But as of late, yesterday, of course, we have the largest loss deficit in history for the 94th Territorial Cup at 63 points.
I remember the 1946 Territorial Cup fondly.
It's so sad that since I started going to UofA, we haven't won the Territorial Cup. I mean, sophomore year 2018, we should have had it. That was like
Dude,
it's
that
all it's
one-
been downhill it's just been downhill since then.
It really has. That was such a fun year. And then yeah.
That was the last time Larry was ever in the stadium too.
Yeah, actually I'm just gonna blame Pete here.
Yeah.
No. See, first 2 years, yes, I could have been a curse. Larry's locks could have been an absolute curse, but I wasn't there sophomore year, and they went like 3-9. I mean, junior year, excuse me. I wasn't there junior, and they still went 3-9. So I think that's just Arizona sucking. Unless my presence was such a curse that it doomed U of A athletics for an eternity.
I think that's what happened.
They just announced Kevin Sumlin's firing. His overall record over the course of 3 years at U of A was 9-20.
Oh, was that worth the $14.5 million? What's his buyout? Because I know he had like 2 years left on that
It was like
contract.
7.5, I think.
Yeah, I think it was the same as Rich Rod.
Oh, well, I mean, good thing we're furloughing professors. Am I right, guys?
And 21 athletic staff.
That's got to be so bad if you work for the athletic staff and getting furloughed and they're giving a $7.5 million buyout to a football coach that isn't working there anymore. Like I saw when I saw Will Muschamp got fired and South Carolina is giving him that buyout, like he's still receiving money from the buyout from the previous job he got fired for.
I just got the notification that our defensive coordinator will serve as the interim head coach.
Oh,
Oh,
perfect. We let up 70 points and now he's our head coach.
Well, 7 of those was off a kickoff. Another 7 was because they got the ball on the 2-yard line. Another 7 was because they got the ball on the 30-yard line. So he let up, what was that, 59 points.
Yeah, you know what they say, U of A defense is the best opposition offense.
It makes me like I don't want to tell people in Kentucky that I am a fan of U of A football. They're not good either, but especially after stuff like last night happens, I think this group should be called Arizona Anonymous because I just it makes it hard to want to identify yourself with that crowd.
I mean, like usually we would always say, I mean, we've all yelled this at a football game on to basketball. And I'm actually kind of excited about basketball this year. This is the first time we've had like a large freshman class that we're actually going to build off of. There's not going to be any like one and dones. But the fact that it's 2020, it's still a global pandemic. And we just kind of wanted like something to look forward to, just a little bit of sliver. 2020 has taught me that the NCAA has zero morals. I knew they were immoral, but I didn't know they just had zero. So I haven't watched any college football except for U of A, which is terrible. It's like, oh, I'm going to watch movies and they're only Nicolas Cage movies. But the fact that we kept it close against USC that first game actually gave me a little bit of hope that we would actually win the Territorial Cup, and that's all I really wanted. And then our next game showed me that, oh, we're terrible. Plagued with the injury bug a little bit. I think the transfer and opt-out bug was a little worse. And honestly, I wouldn't blame any players for opting out. I forget who said it on our team, but they were just like, oh, I don't know. Like, people opting out, they're just like, they can't stick with it. They're not trying to win. Like, you only have a few years of eligibility and you are risking your health to play the sport. Why would you risk your health and waste eligibility at our school?
Let's talk about the real thing. What's going on with Kevin Sumlin's knuckle?
Ew, that is disgusting. I know this is an audio medium, but that's actually disgusting.
It is probably, what is that? The size of like a grape at least.
Oh, at least a grape. I would
Bigger?
say that's maybe like that's getting close to like a clove of garlic.
Yeah, that's probably a better example. It was like that at Texas A&M too.
Ew, what is
Oh, and no, I think that happened last night, and he said he would smash a finger for every time we scored, and so it was only one.
Oh, maybe that's what it was.
Or maybe he said he would smash his fingers every time they scored, and he was just like cranking down on his knuckles 70 times.
Tweeted after the football game, and it said, came in talking about changing the culture. Yeah, you did that for sure. Getting our ass whooped. I've been keeping my peace since I left and did me wrong, but your coaching is shit. Trust me, I know because I played for you. In reference to Kevin Sumlin and what he did here at UofA.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of alumni coming out and just absolutely bashing him. Like, I thought it was bad when Detroit Lions were coming out and saying, yeah, Patricia sucked, or like people on the Texans being like, yeah, Bill O'Brien was like just awful, like not a good coach. But these tweets from like alumni are just grilling the dude. Like, I have no idea. I mean, our athletic department has been pretty incompetent in the last few years, but when you have just alumni coming out and saying this team is ruined, like that is not good, and it's not a great way to recruit. Not the best time to be trending.
Our athletic department is fantastic for sports that nobody cares about. But the sports that people care about, we are terrible at. And the sports that people care about are the revenue sports. I mean, the sports that people don't care about are golf, and we've won a national championship in women's golf, and we are ranked in men's golf. Our softball team is really freaking good. Our swim and dive is always good. Beach volleyball is always good. Gymnastics is good. Like all these sports that no one cares about, those are always good.
You just left off number 6 in the country, women's basketball. Let me tell you, I'm feeling a little title run this year.
Exactly. Like those sports that like don't make a bunch of money for the program, that's what our school does really well. But the men's basketball, the football, we are. I mean, I honestly would rather go play at some D3, D2 school than I would here. I mean, the stage isn't worth it to go get your ass kicked.
Well, so let's talk football conferences and stuff, because like if I'm the Pac-12 and I'm seeing this, like it's weird just how football is so different than every other sport. You have Boise State saying they want to join the Pac-12. San Diego State wants to join the Pac-12, not for all sports, but literally just for football. And then there's us, and we're terrible at football. We're not a legit program. But the only reason that like we continue to try to trot teams out is because we get the TV revenue from football. So it kind of comes down to all of our other teams can be successful because the TV revenue we get from football to get our butt whipped. But there could be a point where A, the Pac-12 puts their foot down and says, we don't want you for football anymore. B, there's going to be conference realignment coming up because the TV contracts expire soon. And C, like I would rather watch a football team in the FCS and playing in the Big Sky Conference that actually is like a contender for that playoff than play just getting my ass kicked in a Power 5 or play in like a crappy FBS conference and actually kind of win games. Because for me, I don't care if we're in a big bowl. I just like watching competitive football, but they'll never agree to do that because we need the TV revenue. So we're kind of in a point where we can't leave the Pac-12 because we need the TV revenue. But if we stay, there's a good chance we don't win like another football game against a conference opponent.
It was a bummer this year because we didn't have any gimmies like normal. So we didn't have any fake feel goods like NAU or Oregon State or any of those fun ones where we actually have a chance just because they're also so terrible.
Oregon State beat us last time.
They did, which was also depressing. It's been a depressing run for all of us. As long as we've been at UofA, it has just been sad, except for the one time where Khalil Tate was decent.
Those 3 Khalil Tate weeks. Oh my God, we were 7.
Yeah,
We were
riding high, bro.
We were 7-3, and he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Oh my God, what a time to be alive!
Yeah,
We beat ranked Washington State, and I wanted to storm the field, and then that security officer's like, "I'm going to tase you," and so we
that's
didn't have
what
to storm
pisses
the
me
field.
off about like the whole Kevin Sumlin thing too. Is like Khalil got hurt, right? So it kind of, you could say, hurt his running game, but also the people were saying like, oh, Kevin doesn't want a running quarterback. So I was like, okay, well, here's Grant now. That turned out really well, huh? So I'm glad he's gone. It'll be interesting to see how that goes going forward.
I remember it was pretty much down between Kevin Sumlin and Les Miles, and Les Miles like, I actually don't want to coach right now. Then a year later, Les Miles went to Kansas, and they're also still terrible. Like, I don't think old, kind of washed up SEC coaches is the answer.
No, it was between Kevin Sumlin and the guy from Navy, because Pete and I said on Tucson television that we want Kevin Sumlin when we were being asked about the guy from Navy.
Oh yeah, because I said I didn't want to run a triple option. Yeah, I look back at that, me being on local news, supporting Kevin Sumlin, me taking a photo with Kevin Sumlin, aged really poorly.
Dude, one of the nicest things about being in Kentucky is that I am not obligated to watch almost any games because they're not televised here. So I only saw like 2 games this whole season, and they were horrible, and I still sat through them. But I didn't have to see the rest of them, and that's what really mattered.
I would like to add that we did get some media attention from Mr. Stool Presidente Dave Portnoy. He did tweet us out during the game, and he said, legit chance Arizona is the worst team in the history of football.
I think so. Well, I think we're officially the worst team in college football because there's usually 12 games in a regular season. We're on a 12-game losing streak, so we've pretty much played a winless season dating back the last 2 years, and it gets to a point where I feel like a Power 5 team that does not win is worse than a like lower FBS team that doesn't win, because if like UTEP doesn't win a game, that's fine, it's UTEP, but when we don't win a game, that's embarrassing. So even if we are better than UTEP, like we're still the worst team in college football. And like at least Kansas has won like a game recently. Like Dylan said, it sucked we didn't have our gimmies against like Big Sky conference teams like Southern Utah or NAU, but I honestly think that they could have a chance against us right now. I also think like there's nowhere to go from here. Like who in God's name would want to play football here? Like we don't have a coach. I don't think a coach wants to coach us. Like our best option is we just have some coach who wants to retire and just wants to chill in Tucson as his retirement, and maybe coaches. Maybe in like 20 years we get like a washed up Nick Saban on a ventilator.
Yeah, and like what's gonna happen with this new coach? Like it'll be interesting to see who we get because it could affect recruiting. But like, are we banking on Grant right now? Like, it'll be interesting to see what happens because our O line is not let alone our defense, but our O line is not good enough to just have a guy who can throw.
I'm calling it right now. Urban Meyer to Tucson. It's happening.
We'll become the greatest team in 5 years and find out the really scummy ways we did it. I don't want him on our campus. I don't care. It's not worth it. I have some morals. That man's the devil.
Okay, Pete, go to ASU then.
It's not like our schedule's getting any easier either. Like over the next 10 years, we have a home and road series scheduled with Mississippi State, Alabama, BYU a couple times in there too. Like we have some tough teams coming up on like non-conference schedule. So like, we're going to be embarrassed even more.
No, we've earned those. We've earned those spots.
I mean, this will make some money off of it. I'm honestly down to just become Boston College, where you schedule 3 non-conf games against like FCS schools from the Northeast, and then get your 3 wins, and then hopefully get 3 conference wins against crappy teams in your conference, and just finish 5-7 or 6-6 and sneak your way into a bowl game.
The problem is there's not one team in the Pac-12 that I feel confident in that we could beat right now.
Yeah, Oregon State's kind of building something there, especially after that big win in the rivalry game. I have a little soft spot for Oregon State because out of all the Power 5 schools, they've had the least amount of COVID cases per capita. And so they're like doing a really good job there. So I've kind of been rooting for them a little bit. That's also why I'm rooting for Northwestern. Yeah, I don't feel comfortable beating any team. The fact that I don't feel comfortable beating any Big Sky teams is very concerning. So what if we start our own conference with like Big Sky teams and like UTEP, UTSA, New Mexico State, and we just kind of name it like the shit West or something like that, and maybe we can scrap away like a 6-6 season and go to the New Mexico Bowl for the 5th time in 10 years.
We can invite North Dakota State and actually have a big name program in the conference too.
They would kick our ass. Oh my God, North Dakota State would take us down, especially we're on the road. You thought 70-7 on our home turf was bad. Imagine playing in the Fargo Dome. Oh God, we'd be dead meat in the Fargo Dome.
I know we would, but at least our conference would have recognition at that point.
Okay, but at that point, let's just stay in the Pac-12 and get our ass kicked. Do you guys remember when I said like a year ago I wanted to join the Big 12?
Yeah.
Is that still on the table?
I don't know. I mean, maybe. Like, honestly, like, do you think we'd be better in the Big 12 than the Pac-12?
I think we'd be the exact same, so we might as well get some good basketball matchups in the new conference and play Kansas every year.
I think we'd be better. I think Kansas is worse than us, or even with us. I think Texas Tech is not very good. Here's the thing with the Big 12 compared to the Pac-12. The Big 12 every year has 4 teams that are really good, and everyone else is like average. And then they have like 5 teams that are trash. The Pac-12 has like 10 teams that are average, and then us at the bottom. And like one team that always disappoints.
I just think it'd be better for TV purposes, because then we could actually, like, especially for basketball, like play in like primetime slots. Because like, especially like being in the West Coast, the Pac-12 after dark, like that's not going to bring in TV money in the future. I mean, the only hope of Pac-12 after dark is if more states legalize gambling, because the only reason why people would stay up to watch that is if they're like chasing like UofA, Oregon State at 11 p.m. Eastern, and they got themselves in a hole from the American Conference game they bet on earlier.
Well, we're obviously spending money really well, so we should keep getting more of it.
I mean, we're not. We literally we're doing mandatory testing that's starting next semester. Maybe we should have done. That was just so annoying. Oh, we're playing for the fans. Well, put that money towards testing then if you're playing for the fans and students. And I mean,
bro, I was so glad. Like, if this season had to happen, I'm so glad it happened when no one, especially me, could be there. Like, the only way it was tolerable was knowing that nobody was sitting in the stands watching.
that would have been a good paper bag over the head season.
Oh yeah. The like the redeeming quality of like checking ESPN every couple hours was like being like, oh, I didn't wait in line for this game. Oh, thank God there's a pandemic and no one else did either.
Jay, could you imagine camping out for this season?
I will tell you guys, everybody thought that I was hammered at every game. I only drank before one game, and that was 2018 for ASU. And that was one of the worst days I've ever had in college. But if I was a fan going to these games, I would be blacked by halftime.
Dylan, imagine how many sad pancakes at the Den I'd eat after this season.
Dude, the Den would have made a fortune off you, mate. Like, this season was so unbelievable. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, I didn't just think of this for the podcast. I have literally thought during the season, like, I am so glad no one had to go there this year. Like, no freshmen, this was their introduction to our football, because maybe they can watch it on TV, but You just click off. It's not like, they tried to go or anything. I was like, this is great. No season ticket holders or anyone was let down.
Oh god, could you imagine putting a down payment down for season tickets and then it's just that? Like at that point, the school's got to be like, okay, here's a bit of a refund. Sorry about
Dude,
that.
people in box suites and stuff like that. Like, could you have imagined if this was what had occurred for all the people who actually spent money on Arizona sports?
On to women's basketball. Am I right, gentlemen?
It is about that time.
The problem is with that, we play in the Pac-12, and Stanford's number 1 in the country, and UCLA is number 10 in the country, and Oregon State's like number 4 in the country. Like half the teams in the Pac-12 are top 15 in women's basketball. So just because we're 6 doesn't mean we're actually going to make it very far or have a decent seed, because there's so many freaking good teams in the Pac-12 and other sports.
Well, at least we'll have some compelling television to watch because this was terrible. Boys, I got to grab some dinner, but thank you for joining me in Arizona Anonymous. Before next season starts, I think we kick off against BYU next season. And I believe that day, once we get to, I think it's September 2nd, I believe that would be 700 days since our last win by the time we get there. So, boys, thank you for joining me, Arizona Anonymous. This is probably the most depressing episode we've ever made, but you know what? It had to be done. And I'm looking forward to our next meeting. I'm Pete Sippis, and thanks for listening.